Thanks, Carl, for joining today. Like he said, we're going to go over some of the best practices, tips and tricks, that type of stuff within the Smart Office application. What we're looking to do over the next hour or so is talk about who should be considering Smart Office. We're going to look at building a workspace from scratch, and then throughout the entire course of the hour, we can take questions. So as you have them, type them into the chat window, and we'd be more than happy to answer them as we're going through. A little bit about RPI. We were founded in 1999. We have headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. We're currently presenting out of Tampa, which is our second office. And we also have an office in Scottsdale and Kansas City, Missouri. But we got 60 consultants across the country, and we specialize in all the Lawson Infor products. This is actually a shot of us from Inforum back in July of this year in New York. Were you up there?
No.
Okay. That's why you don't get an arrow.
Yeah.
All right, so first question, who should consider implementing and rolling out Smart Office? This is a tool that is geared towards a power user. And when I say that, I mean someone that's in Lawson 5 hours a day, keying in invoices, putting purchase orders into the system. There's a lot of functionality that Smart Office provides that that type of user can leverage to make the way that they work more efficient. Not saying that the casual user can't use Smart Office. Anyone can use it, but really the functionality built into Smart Office is geared mostly towards power users. So Smart Office is just another interface, user interface for Lawson, right? You have Lid from the old days, Portal or Mingle Portal from version 9, Mingle in version 10. But Smart Office is just another way of looking at that same Lawson data. And there's a lot of built-in functionality in the Smart Office that we're going to look at over the course of the next hour that will show you how different it is than a Lid or a Portal, for example. What we want to focus on next is building just a workspace for an AP super user, for example. We're going to spend about 5 minutes just looking at how an overview of what that canvas might look like, some of the things that we can put onto the canvas, different ways to personalize forms and things like that. And then in the subsequent slides, we're going to actually drill into more detail about how to set up those personalizations on your form and how to create those info browsers on your canvas. So next slide is more just a high-level look at where we're going. And we're going to play this video now that's going to walk us through. So for those of you that have not seen Smart Office, this is what it looks like. You have the ability to change the way it looks color-wise, but also more importantly, change what's on our canvas. Up here, we're zooming into a start pad. And a start pad is just a way for us to categorize all the different forms that we like to go to. These are all user-defined categories we have, maintenance or processing. Specifically for an AP clerk, we have a whole pay cycle defined in there. So the user can click those forms or those links to launch the forms. A real good tool for a beginning user that maybe doesn't have a lot of familiarity with Lawson. So instead of remembering form numbers and things like that, you can set them up with a start pad, which nicely outlines what they're doing within Lawson.
Does this start pad come out of the box?
So the functionality is there, but to configure that's kind of up to the user, how they want to set up those categories and things like that. What we're looking at here are a few info browsers that we have set up. This first one is just showing open buyer messages. These are driven off of queries that we set up. And we're going to go into each one of these kind of in a little bit, but right now we're looking at what you kind of can do with Smart Office. But these info browsers allow you to put specific data on your canvas. I see them mostly used for exception reporting, buyer's messages, unreleased invoices, things like that. as well as listings. So the last widget we have here is the vendor listing, which is essentially just a listing of everything in your vendor master. And this info browser just has it right there on your canvas, and you can search and filter within all of these. And the nice thing about this widget down at the bottom, the vendor listing, is that double clicking on one of these records will actually launch your AP10. So it's a quick way of getting to vendors. There's a lot of different ways to navigate within SmartOffice itself. Those list-driven forms, that's just another, or those info browsers, that's just another way of doing the same thing. You see in here we have an embedded map that's referencing the vendor's address. So when you're on that AP10 record, you can actually see where that vendor is sitting on the map. This isn't out of the box. This is all stuff that either consultants or you as the end user could configure yourself. Some things are a little bit harder or involve a little bit more work to configure than others. And as we go through, you can kind of see for yourself, creating form personalizations can be kind of easy, but maybe embedding a map into your AP10 might be a little trickier. What we're showing here is just the ability to have those form attachments live directly on your vendor record. So this is just an AP10 W9 that's living right on the AP10 form. List view. So this AP20 list-driven form looks different than it does if you were just to go to AP20 in Portal. We're going to get into a little bit what this list view form can do for you and how you can leverage some of the cool things that Lawson's allowing you to do within this list view.
Do you have any limitations or recommendations on the list view versus the regular view?
So it depends. I mean, sometimes I know users are kind of stuck in their ways. They like to see the traditional form versus a list-driven form. I find the list-driven form pretty beneficial. It allows me to use that search functionality to get to invoices or POs or vendors pretty quick. But you can always turn that off. If you don't like list view, you can turn list view off and just have the traditional forms pop up. It just depends. It really comes down to how you like to see the forms. But that's what's good about SmartOffice is these settings, quote unquote, can be different for each user. They don't need to be global, but they can be. Just some form personalizations. We're going to get into creating conditional styles, defaulting values, showing or hiding fields. This is all just out-of-the-box functionality that SmartOffice provides. And we'll take a look at, through these videos, we have a whole series of videos, how you can do some of that stuff. All right, so the first thing we looked at was configuring that start pad. So we created a start pad for an AP clerk. And we're going to play this video that will show us how to create that start pad from scratch. And Carl asked before, do these come standard out of the box? And the question was, or the answer was, the functionality's there, but you as the user, or we as the consultant would build these for you. So first things first is you name your start pad, right? You create a new start pad, and in this case, we're kind of putting ourselves into a buyer or an AP clerk's role and figuring out what forms do we want to put into this start pad. If you remember before, we had this start pad broken out into maintenance and processing and reports and the pay cycle. So what I'm doing now is just adding all of those groups manually. So you kind of have to start with the end in mind and say, what do I want to see in this start pad and how do I want to break it out? And then you can start building those groups first. You need to have those groups there first before you can actually add any forms to them. If you have forms or categories that you missed up front, you can always come back after the fact and add new groups. Step 2 here is once those groups are defined, we're adding the form to that group. So I go out, I search for my AP10 form. It brings in a specific syntax there, that sforms://AP10.1. So you can't just type AP10 in there. SmartOffice needs that specific syntax in order to launch that form from the start pad. I add it, and it falls right into the category that I told it to fall into. And I'm just going to keep going back into this and creating new forms. Pick whatever icon you want. You can also add a new icon if you have a special picture that you want to bring up. You can bring in that picture, and that can be your AP10 or your AP20 form. These might take a little bit of time to build up front. You know, it might take 20, 30 minutes to build. But the idea is that once you have it, it's yours, and you can distribute that to other users. So the benefit, you know, half an hour is not too long of a time, but once you have that built, it's very easy to distribute those to other users.
Can these be links to anything within SmartOffice?
It can be. So you could link out to an in-basket if you wanted to. You could do a specific target to an in-basket. In this case, we're just looking at forms. It's like I said before, for coming into Lawson with no background, it might be hard to understand that AP20 is your invoice form and AP10 is your vendor form. So providing these for beginner users is, I think, a really good idea. Your administration or your super user within the department can set these up, and as new users come into your department, you push these out and you say, hey, you're living here. Like, these are the forms you're going to. Here's the report you need to run. Eventually, those form numbers are going away in version 11, so we're not going to need to worry about AP10 as vendor. It's all going to be different. The video is just going to keep walking us through this. We are adding as we go to different categories that we've defined. You can always come back in and add new ones. So this isn't a once and done. You can create this now and tomorrow come back, add new forms to these categories. A nice feature about this, which we're going to demo in a second too, is not only shooting out to a form or a report or a job, but linking out to a job that has populated data on the job. So you might have GL190s or AP175s that you have set up to run, and you can link out directly to that form or that job with the job there. So instead of having to open a form blank, look at your job, you can now just double click this link and it's going to open up that form with the job already populated. And we're going to show that to you in a second. But here, what I did, I created the start pad and I just dragged that onto my canvas. And from there, I can shoot out to any of the forms that I just put into that start pad. Now, if we want to do what I was just talking about, where you have an AP150, for example, and it has parameters, I want to create a link directly to this page. You got to go to Tools, Bookmarks, and then Canvas shortcut to Current. And what this is going to do is create an exact link to that job. You can then copy the SForms target or URL that it creates or it generates, and then paste that into your start pad. So what we're doing here is editing that AP150 form we already had. Now we're just putting in that new direct link to our job. We save it, and then if we relaunch that AP150 link, we'll see that it's going to bring up the job that we already have. All right. So those are start pads. Start pads are easily shared amongst departments. We can export these, creates an export file that we can then email around to users. We can publish these, and you can either publish them globally, so all users within Smart Office would be able to access these, or you can publish them to specific roles that Smart Office users have. So there's a lot of flexibility with rolling these out. Everything I'm doing right now, just keep in mind, is under one user. It's under me. So I'm not making these personalizations and customizations for everyone at the moment. I'm doing it on my own profile. And then as you see, as we go through, we'll show you how you can actually push those out to users. All right, so let's move on to list view. All right, we got a question. We'll take a pause there. That screen's off. All right, first question. What version of Smart Office is this? I don't see start pads on mine. It's very unfortunate. So this is Smart Office version 10.1. I don't know the next number after that, but it's a 10.1 version. The latest version is a 10.2.1. Smart pads, start pads are available in all the versions. There is a setting that we need to turn on for you to see that. And if you send me your email address, I can show you exactly where the enable start pad setting is configured. You can push out, share a preferred desktop setting with other users, ? So yes, you can. There's many ways to share these personalizations or these custom canvases. That's part of rolling out Smart Office, right? One is getting trained on how it works and all the cool things you can do with it, and two is how do you administer it and how do you roll it out. So there's the ability to create kind of canvases by department, AP, materials, finance, and have as many canvases as they need or they require, and have them be pushed out to those departments so that when they log in, they all see different things. Can you link to Smart Recon and RQC? You can link to RQC, and I believe you can link to Smart Recon too.
Same thing.
So yes to both. What are best practices for locking down Smart Office so users cannot make any customizations they wish, but groups get access to useful role-based canvases and under central control? Yeah, so everything we're showing or we're about to show, whether they're personalizations to a form or customizations to a canvas, can be locked down based on users or roles. And you can do that within the settings editor, I think it is, within Smart Office. I think you need to be an admin in order to do this, but you can restrict what user based off of either user or role, I believe, can do different things. That's kind of part of the philosophical question of Smart Office, is that, you know, it can do so much. Where do you want to fall in that range? Do you want to open this up and have users allow them to do whatever they want, or do you fall somewhere in the middle where you're restricting some things but keeping most of them open?
I guess part of that too is, for the most part, a user customizes their own personal view, right? That doesn't affect other users' view, so a form or whatever.
Right, and that's another question. You know, you can set it up to say, hey, here's what we as an organization think you want, but we're also going to allow you to change that and add stuff to your canvas and create personalizations too. Where can we find user guides or user information relating to start pads? I can send something to you. I think you might be able to search Infor Extreme for start pad information. I also know there's an admin guide out there that I can send around that has some good information on start pads. But I do have a user document, so if you send me your email address, I can get that documentation to you. Does SmartOffice come with version 10 or is it extra? So it doesn't come with version 10, right? It's a separate bolt-on, quote unquote.
Right, it is a separate licensable product. It just as mashups adding on to that is as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen if you're an Infor Cloud customer, it seems to be packaged with Infor Cloud most of the time. But as far as on-premise, it is a separate product.
Got it. And it's not specific to version 10, so you can have SmartOffice on your version 9 Lawson system. Can you create notes in SmartOffice? Yes. So I'm not sure if I'll answer this two ways. There's a notes widget that you can use from your widget library, and that'll allow you to just type in random notes on your SmartOffice canvas. There's also Smart Notes. I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to. But Smart Notes can be generated, and that's not really created within SmartOffice. That's kind of a separate application to create smart notifications. But I do want to just reiterate that SmartOffice is just a user interface, right? It's a different way of looking into Lawson, and with it comes a lot of cool features and functionality. All right, let's keep rolling. List views. So we're going to play a video, and the video is going to walk us through the list view functionality within SmartOffice. We go to AP10 or AP20. There's a lot of different forms within finance, supply chain, HR that all leverage this list view functionality. And it allows you to choose, obviously it's displaying in a different form, but it allows you to choose different fields and different columns on that form. So notice off of AP20, we have over 2,000 records or columns that we can choose from to add to this list view. But what I'm going to do is just go through and pick and choose specific fields that I feel I want to put on my AP20 list view. You can do that a couple different ways. You can just search for those fields at the property or the label column. You can further refine this data set by table. In this case, AP invoice would be our main table, but we have AP vendmaster, CB cash code, a couple employee expense tables. So how you want to get to those fields to include in your list view is kind of up to you, whether you want to scroll or see. We have a bunch of tables here that are related to our AP invoice. All we're doing is picking and choosing. The bottom of our form displays the columns that we've chosen, or the fields that we've chosen. You can move those back and forth and shuffle them around however you want. Once we figure out what we want to see, we'll click OK, and then our AP20 list view is going to refresh. It's going to bring in our authority code, cash code, and payment code, the 3 extra fields we chose. And that's going to, obviously give you the data that's there with that invoice. Within list view, right, so the benefits here, you're able to now search on the fields that Lawson gives you, but also the new ones that we've added. You can make changes directly to this data from list view. So any form or any field that you kind of see with this box around it that you can click into it, it means it's editable. You can go in there and actually update some of those fields and make the changes directly on the list-driven form on this view. Okay, so I'm just using that payment code field. I'm filtering down on my ACH payments, and it's a real quick way of seeing the ACH payments that are living out on AP20 right now. So the searchability is a big thing. You can sort these. And what we're going to look at here is a visualization. So a visualization allows you to take this data and create a chart or a pie graph or whatever to help you visualize the data that's within the form. It's going to live off of your form, off the list-driven form, and we can configure it based off of some of these predefined labels. We'll give it a title, a description, and then we're just going to group up all of those invoices out there by vendor. And I want to show just a count of all the invoices out there by vendor. You can do a count, you can do a sum. So if you wanted to break out to see how many unreleased invoices are out there, what number, and also how what's the total amount, you can kind of go back and forth there with the group by type. So you bring your cursor over that chart, and it just gives you some quick data regarding, in this case we have 11 invoices out there for company or for vendor number 1. Just a nice way to look at the data. It's the chart also will respond to different selections that you make. So as I'm clicking through, it's dynamically changing based off of my selections from the list view, which is kind of cool. You don't need to have this out there. It's just kind of a nice to have, maybe for AP20 or PO20 or some of those other list-driven forms where you want to get a good overview of what's out there. This might be a nice little tool for you.
Have you seen these built out much on the HR side?
I've really not seen them built out too much.
Okay.
So it'll save with your list view. Every time you close down the form, AP20, and relaunch it, if you have this saved, it will come up when you bring AP20 up again. An important point to note is that the original AP20 that Lawson gives you in list view is not gone. So you have the original AP20 with the columns that they give you. You also have your own list view form that you just saw we created. And you can add as many of those custom AP20s as you want. And you have the ability to toggle back and forth between all those different list views. What you saw me do there was select a bunch of data and right-click and say Export to Excel. And that dumped all of my data out into Excel real quick. So a nice way to get a report. Or you can go up to Tools, Export. There's tight integration with Microsoft. So you just saw Excel, and here's integration with Microsoft Outlook. I selected a few rows, said send to Outlook, and it's creating this chart in my email. It gives me a little picture there too, and then I can send this right off to whoever wants this. And again, this is all coming right off of our list view form. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. Not only is it helpful to get to one of those invoices that you need to bring up, you can have this chart. You can export to Microsoft pretty easily. And later on in the presentation, we're going to show how you can edit this data directly in Excel, which is pretty cool. A lot of times I get the question, what about the regular view? What about AP20 the way we all know it? If you click on any of these rows, it'll bring up AP20 as you're used to seeing it. So that doesn't go away. Let's get into editing lists in Excel. Kind of piggybacking off of this list view functionality is the ability to grab that data, push it into Excel, and then edit that data in Excel and upload it back into Lawson. So we're going to play this video right now and show you exactly that. This is very similar to Microsoft add-ins. So if you're familiar with add-ins, this is, this won't be too different. Know that the same security that governs Microsoft add-ins will govern what you can do here. So if you can't upload to AP20 through add-ins, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to do what we're doing here. In this case, we went to AP10, which is another list-driven form, and I'm adding a couple additional fields that I want to include in my export to Excel. I'm going to add my cash code, and I'm going to add a bank institution code. So a really nice way of, if you need to do some vendor cleanup, and you can find those fields and they're editable within this list view form, you can do a vendor cleanup pretty quick, making sure addresses are in the right fields and phone numbers are in the right fields and things like that. All right, so I get my list view form and however I want to see it, and then I'm going to export this to Excel. I go up to Tools, Edit List in Excel. For your vendor master, it's probably going to take a little bit of time. It's dumping all of your vendors out into Excel for you to edit. If you notice up here, the Infor add-in to Excel lives right next to your add-ins. So this Smart Office Edit List in Excel is actually just an add-in to your Microsoft tool. Your data will display in this table, and as you make changes within Excel, it is saying, okay, there's a change pending for all these rows, and it won't be until you actually click upload that everything that's changed is going to upload into Lawson. Now what we've done is just we've taken an export of AP10, but if you wanted to add a vendor this way, you could do it too. At the very bottom of this table, you could just insert a new row, enter the new vendor number or new vendor name and some of the required information, and that additional record will actually get captured and pushed up into Lawson during this upload. All right, so we're just showing simple Excel functionality, copy paste. You can make mass changes within Excel like you would in add-ins. And then we come up to our Infor ribbon and we say upload everything, only selected rows or specific range, and then click that upload button. And Lawson, or the Smart Office, as you can see here, it's making those changes and it's updating your Excel spreadsheet accordingly.
Do you see any benefits to using this over add-ins?
I do. It's quicker. So for one, you just take that export directly from AP10 off the list-driven form. You got your data in Excel. You don't have to do any mapping, right? You don't have to say column A maps back to vendor group and column B maps back to vendor. Mm-hmm. That link is established as soon as you click that Edit List in Excel button. All right, and then we just come back into Smart Office. We refresh our form, and all the changes we made they're visible, and they've updated the Lawson tables. That's Edit List in Excel. You can do this for any form that is list-driven. We just showed you AP10, but there's a slew of forms that are list-driven forms. So if you can get that data into Excel, you can use this functionality to get it back into Lawson.
I think we have a couple questions too.
All right, question: if you are a cloud customer, can you use it directly in production, or does Infor have to move your build to prod? Yeah, you can just use it right in production.
Because the user itself can export and import, right?
Yeah, I'm curious if this is like Smart Office in general or the edit list in Excel. I think it's just, can you use Smart Office in production? Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. What if chart view is grayed out? The chart view is grayed out. I think you're referring to the edit list in Excel being grayed out. I'm not sure if this was back when we were covering the visualization or not. Send me an email and I can work with you there. I'm not exactly sure what settings grayed out. Will you be showing the edit list in Excel functionality? Yeah, these must have been a little bit before. Is Smart Office compatible with Google Mail? Not that I know of. I think it's just the links with Microsoft and those tools. We got Smart Office installed, but I don't have that Infor ribbon in Excel. Is there something I need to do to get the Infor ribbon in Excel? There is. There's an Infor Excel MSI add-in file that you need to install on the PC that you are trying to do that edit list in Excel functionality. That file is found on the Smart Office server when it's initially installed. And you just have to go out, find that file, and then install it on the user's PC. Is there something that I need to do to get the Infor? Yep, I think we just looked at that one. We have MS add-ins, but not the Infor feature. Yeah, so again, that's all. It's a separate file in addition to the add-ins that you currently have in order to get that edit list in Excel to work. All right. Personalizing Lawson forms. So this is, what Smart Office really brands itself as. The ability to take a form and remove things, hide things, conditionally default things. That wasn't existing in Portal unless you had to, use Design Studio or something to change the way that a form looked. So we're going to play this video that shows us how to default values onto a form, edit the way the tab order displays, show or hide fields. I'm using AP20 as an example. All this lives right off of your tools, personalization button. So we have everything highlighted you can do. Conditional styles, add scripting to your form, remove fields, default specific field values in. All that is built-in functionality within Smart Office. But here, let's say we're a single company, and we can default company 1 into our AP20 company field. I can just right-click my company field, go to personalize, default value, conditional or unconditional. So conditional meaning if this, then that. So if there's a condition that's met, default a value there. Or unconditionally, just all the time, I want to default company 1 into that field. We'll drop it in, and then we're just saying the actual value that we're putting in there. So if your company is company 1, put in company 1. It'd be nice if this would do it for, you do this once for every form that has company in it, but it is on a form by form basis. If you want to set this up for PO20, other forms with that company field in there, you got to do it on each form. All right, what else can we do? We defaulted company into there. Let's change the way that we tab throughout that form. So if you're an AP clerk, a buyer, and you're typing a lot on those processing forms, you can change the way that tab goes through the form, which will speed up your processing. So in this case, I want to just not have my tab go to company first. I want it to go over to post date. So what I can do is, just go in there and actually type. Post date will be number 1. Vendor will be number 2. whatever suits the way that you process an invoice is how you want to set this up. And what you're doing here is you're defining the way that should go 1, 2, 3 sequentially, but at the same time you need to skip over the fields that you don't want to tab to. So what I'm doing here is just typing 99 into all those fields that I want to skip over. So you can save some time here. You set this up once, and then this is the way the form is going to tab through every time you open up the form. You don't need to go all the way through 99. I mean, you're probably only tabbing through a form 5 to 10 times, 15 maybe. So maybe you just set up 10 or so of these tabs and you're off to the races. Again, these are good techniques to use for processing forms. AP20, PO20, GL40, GL70. The repetitive entry forms, this will be of value to those AP clerks and buyers and accountants. All these personalizations I'm making by myself, but like we were talking about before, and the question we had before is, you can limit every single thing that you're watching us do. So you can say, no, I don't want a specific group to be able to do this. Or yes, I do. Pretty much every type of personalization that we make or can make has that ability to control. All right, so once we have our form tabbed, we can save it, and then when we reopen it and tab through that form, it's going to now follow. See, it goes right to post date. That's what we said was number 1. And as we go through, it's tabbing in that same order that we told it to.
All of these changes are also stored as XML files on the LSF server. So
Correct.
those can be migrated pretty easy from test to production or whatever you need.
Right, so the one caveat there is that you would need to change, if it is a production to test, you need to
if you have a
change,
product line name.
Yeah, within the XML file, right?
Right.
So all these personalizations that we're seeing here, it actually saves this ap20.1.xml.
Right.
And you can view that XML and see what personalizations were made to the form. All right, hiding fields or showing fields, it's as simple as checking off the fields you don't want to see. We have both the field and the label pop up. So we have the ability of saying, no, I don't want to see the analysis field and the actual label. So we can get rid of everything. Again, important or effective for processing forms. You don't want a lot of clutter on your AP20 form. You can remove all the fields that really don't apply to you. And even cooler, you can actually remove some of the tabs. So if you never use that user fields tab or interest stat or rebate tab, you just uncheck those and you won't see them. All right, so we can save that off, and then every time, this is just showing them getting removed, every time we open up AP20, we will see our customized form. The end for this one. Got a couple more.
Looks like we have more questions too.
Yeah, so let's take a stop for a couple questions. Can you audit the edit list changes that are loaded in Infor? You can, depending on what you're uploading to. In version 10, there's a lot of enhanced auditing capabilities. So if you are doing like a journal entry upload through the GL40 edit list in Excel, you can audit that. Changes to your AP company or process level, if you're doing that through the edit list in Excel functionality, you can audit that too. So there's not really like an auditing specific for the edit list in Excel, but there is just built-in auditing capabilities within Lawson. I've noticed that your examples are for S3. Can Smart Office be used for Landmark? So Smart Office is an interface for Lawson, right? For the S3 Lawson LSF environment. It is built off of Landmark, Smart Office.
No, you can add in the IPA in basket, but as far as the Landmark applications, it's not compatible.
Got it. So you can launch out to your in basket from Smart Office,
yeah.
But Smart Office isn't looking at Landmark.
Right, it wouldn't be used for like a talent management or contract management kind of thing.
Right, okay. Can personalizations be distributed out and locked? Basically Design Studio, a form in Smart Office. Yes, so all the personalizations that we're doing, you can say, first off, I'm not going to allow a specific set of users to make that personalization. I'm going to lock down them from having the ability to show or remove fields. At the same time, you can say, yeah, sure, you can do whatever you want, and I'm also going to be able to distribute those settings throughout your whole department or globally throughout the organization, however that works best. All right, let's spend a little bit of time. We got about 10 minutes left, and we've got a lot of questions. So we'll go through this last slide here, but keep the questions coming. And if they start to build up, we'll just take a pause and get to all of them. The info browsers. So we got a video here that's going to show what we looked at originally. Remember back in the first or second slide, we had a video that showed the open buyers messages and our vendor listing and open invoices. We're going to show you through this video that we're going to play how to easily set up and configure those info browsers, Carlos.
This video.
We're going to play the video.
Is anybody still awake? There will be a quiz at the end of the session.
So the buyer's messages, these are, they all start from your widget library. You right click on your canvas, you go down to Lawson Info Browser, and you can drag and drop that info browser onto your canvas, and thus begins the build out of your widget. Give it a title, and in this case, open buyers messages are what we're trying to show. So that's what we will name it. We're defining a data area. So if you're in production, but maybe you got a couple product lines in production, you can designate what area we're looking at. And the second or third part here is picking the table that you're starting with. So if we're looking at buyers messages, we're going to go down to one of our tables that lives within our matching system. If you know the table prefix, you can type that directly in there. That'll give you the full table name, or you can just scroll down to the table and choose it. Once we have the table, we want to define the fields that are going to show up in our widget. So Lawson gives us 5 or so to choose from default out of the box, but we can go and add as many as they give us. I'm going to remove a couple of these because I don't want to see them, and add a few more in to meet the requirements of my business owners. You saw this before, different ways to get to fields. Search for them up top. If you know the table that it lives on, maybe doing a drop down on tables is a quicker way to get there. But selecting those fields will drop them into your info browser. The label column, the first one you see over there, that's a customizable field. So you can override whatever's in there, type whatever field name you want it to be. Info browsers aren't meant to replace reporting, right? You probably already have reporting solutions and tools out there. This is meant to supplement. So I see these commonly used for exception reporting. open buyer's messages, open invoices, as well as listings. So if you have a listing of vendors or POs or requisitions that you manage, you can configure these info browsers to provide you that type of data. So I wouldn't suggest relying on info browsers as your only way of reporting on Lawson data. Okay, so I've picked the majority of the fields that I want to see. I guess there's a couple more that I want to see. Authority code.
How do I enable the telepathic make Smart Office do everything while I stare at it function? Because that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Jedi style.
It's got Siri built in.
Yes.
Hey, Smart Office. My columns are down low. I can save this off and choose some conditions, right? I'm looking at the MA invoice detail table, I believe it is. And now the condition I want to put on that Lawson gives me is open buyer's messages. So under that conditions link, I choose open message, and it's only going to deliver data that meets that open message criteria. And it's as simple as that. You got your buyer message browser right on your canvas, search within it. These can or cannot refresh automatically. That is a setting that you can put on to say, automatically refresh this. Or I typically see that's not the way you do it, and just leave it out there. And if you want to see new data, just put your cursor into the search bar and click enter and bring up the latest data. You can export all this data out to Excel, so you get a quick way to report on the in this case, open buyer's messages. All right, we got a couple questions, it looks like. I'll keep the screen going so you guys can kind of see what else we have in store there, but let's answer a couple of these questions. Bill, can you scroll down a little bit?
You mean?
Yeah, scroll. Let's move down to like 23. Yeah, I think we're on 23. How can you customize the screens in RQC? For example, the item description is only displaying 30 characters. If I allow users to only enter 30 characters, how would I do that? The RQC customization is separate and apart from Smart Office.
Right. Those are HTML files that are delivered similar to an employee self-service or something on the Lawson side.
Right, so you can shoot out to RQC from Smart Office, but the same way that you saw us personalizing forms within AP20 wouldn't really apply to an RQC personalization. Some of my browsers time out. How do I refresh or rerun the query? I would say take a look at the query. If you're using this info browser and you're trying to pull back a lot of data, it just might not have the bandwidth to do that. So if there's thousands and thousands of records in some of those info browsers, maybe try and limit them using some sort of filter criteria. Do you have any suggestions?
It might not be the best tool to try to query your entire GL trans database.
Yep.
Probably more built for simpler queries.
Yeah. Exception handling, listings, things like that. Smaller types of data sets.
It's a good one for Carl.
We're in 10.2. Are you aware that there are Microsoft security updates that disable a client access to Smart Office, to the Smart Office RFix? Sorry, let's start over. Are you aware that there are Microsoft security updates that disable a client access to Smart Office? Our fix is to uninstall the updates, but has to do a trial and error because not all of them are causing an error. The error is unable to connect to server.
I haven't seen that, but it is pretty reliant on your Windows operating system. So one of the biggest things is the .NET version. So if for some reason a Windows update updated the .NET version, that could obviously be a big issue. But I don't think we've run into a Windows update crashing a Smart Office client.
That's good. How do you make the date dynamic daily rather than having to change the criteria every day? There is a way to do that. Within when you're building out that query or that info browser, we can put different dynamic filters on that. And if you send me an email, I can show you how to do that. But there is an option to go dynamic date versus a fixed date, and there's different ways that you can configure that. But if you send me your email address, I will follow up with you on that.
For those of you still watching, I want you to know that Chris Gordon puts these videos as a screensavers. And they're always playing in the background.
Puts me to sleep.
Yes. This was like 10 minutes, man.
Yeah, this is a long one. I was going through each one. I think we had like 3 different info browsers. But that's the presentation. Hopefully you guys got some good info out of this. It is very content heavy. And if you do have questions,
the screen, the video.
My email address is on this business card. So if we weren't able to answer your questions or you have additional questions, feel free to follow up with me, and we'll get right back to you.
All right. So I want to thank Mr. Chris Gordon, Mr. Carl Seay for stepping in for an hour. Mr. Chris Gordon.